welcome back. And we have a crowded set this morning as we prepare to hear from these young minds as to what they think of going to the ICJ or not going to the ICJ, apparently. So let me start off with our introductions. On this end, we have two third form students. We have Bryce Young and Erie Palacio. And on the end, we have the SJC English teacher, Nikki Tillett. And then on my right, we have a second form student who is Keron Warrior. All right, and in the middle, we have Michael Sabido, who's a third former. And then we have a first former, Valdemar Andrade. And on the end, the history teacher at SJC, Delmer Tzib. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for being here. So we're starting the school day a bit early today, right? Are the minds fresh?
Of course.
Kind of. Now, I'm very excited to hear your points of view, but I really, first of all, want to commend the school on taking this initiative and for us to understand a bit of the thought process that took place within the administration for you to move into this particular route.
Well, honestly, good morning to everyone and to the viewers at home. And before we begin, I know that we're speaking on the ICJ, but we also want to send our prayers to Guatemala, because I know right now there is the earthquake, the volcano that they're experiencing. And so regardless of our differences, human life, so we want to acknowledge that. But back to what we did here, this really just started as a little office conversation between colleagues. And we started to have a little discussion and our own internal debate amongst the teachers. And then Mr. Tzib said to me a little while later after that particular conversation, why not do this for the students? Let's hear what they have to say. Let's hear their views on this topic. He wanted to do the teachers, but I said I don't think the teachers are willing to go up there and speak on the topic, but let's do the students. And so we decided from the language department, myself and Mr. Tzib from the history department, let's do a collaboration because there's a need for the skills from the English department where we teach them debating and speaking and being confident in public spaces. And then Mr. Tzib introduced all the historical data, all the facts that they needed. So that was one of our first starting point. But from the history club, I think that he may want to add some more as to what was their drive in being a part of it.
Well, I think, good morning, first of all. I think that one of the key moments in relation to going through this debate was I had a class in fourth form with 4A and 4E. And usually at the end of every class, especially when there is a break, students would linger around and just debating about any sort of topic that I'm talking about. And it so happens that this class ended with the ICJ. And I want to quote one of my students here. He's from 4A. He graduated yesterday, actually. Aidan Villanueva, who came at the end of my class very frustrated, saying, sir, you know, people that are talking about this issue are people that are qualified. It seems like no one wants to hear us. Mm-hmm. And that to me, it sort of stuck a pin, you know, like you begin to notice, look, probably it's true. Like, because they're high schoolers, they're not being heard. And let's be real, this issue has been affecting our grandfathers, they've affected our parents, and they're now affecting us. And potentially, 10 years from now, we'll still be dealing with this issue. And we didn't hear the voices of these young people. So that is what we wanted to tackle with this debate. Basically, hear them out to see, okay, what are you thinking? But the process of it wasn't that easy in a sense, because many of them had biases already towards going towards yes, towards going no. Mm-hmm. However, the process of a debate is sometimes you have to go through against your own will because you're debating a point. Mm-hmm. And that is where the challenge was. And that is where I would really want to go into the students now to hear what they had, what was their experience, how they prepared, and how they developed their points. Because as I said, in many instances, they went against what they really believed.
If I can say this quickly, when you look at the fact that this is an initiative born of the fourth form brain trust, if I may, and you look at the fact that a majority of them are at that age where next year, when there is the referendum, they would be eligible to vote. Mm-hmm. They're at that age right now where they're 17, 18 years old, and they'll probably go through that process, and they need to be informed. So what better way than to start that conversation amongst themselves, either those for or against and just put it on the table. I think it's an initiative that is commendable on the part of the school.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, I would like to give credit to the students themselves,
Yeah.
actually. It was a student, I mean, yes, we discussed about it, but we were thinking more of inviting someone or debating amongst each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the students change our mindset, basically. The students saying, look, we're not heard. And that is true. They're not heard in many instances because they're put in the academic strand, we could say they're put
Yeah.
at the lowest
And
tier
they're
of-
also seen as non-voters because they may not be eligible as yet. But let me, one of the crucial areas is getting the foundation, the information that is needed to make the decision or to have a position. And that's where we really see in the wider community that people are really challenged with. They're going completely off emotion and very little fact. So how did you ensure that all possible scenarios were passed on to the students so they can be able to effectively represent their position?
Well, I think that one of the major issues that we had is that there's a lot of data available about going to the ICJ, which is the yes, going to the ICJ. So with that, we didn't have any issues. And but without, or let's say, saying no to the ICJ, which is where a lot of people think if you vote no, you're emotional and this sort of thing. However, what we found out was that while researching the data and while looking at particularly taking into consideration the Guatemalan case, that there are strong arguments as well, and factual, I must say, not emotional arguments,
Yeah.
as well factual arguments about why we should not go to the ICJ. And one of the major issues, I think, with Belize is that we're doing an education campaign and we're looking at our case almost like if we're a horse with you know, the
Blinders.
Blinders.
blinders, just looking at our case, looking at our world, and we're not considering what the Guatemalans are putting forward. We do not place a lot of emphasis to look at what the Guatemalans are arguing, because that is a direct counter to what we are arguing.
Definitely.
And their facts actually contribute a lot to saying, okay, are we strong or are we not strong going to the ICJ?
So where'd you get that information from to present?
Well, let me just say bluntly, I can speak Spanish.
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that I love doing is going on Guatemalan pages that say yes,
Prensa
that
Libre.
that say we won't Belize, and I love going out there and just debating with them, and the educated ones would put on links of what they have on master's thesis from Universidad de San Carlos, and then many other academics, and their case is also online, so you can download it, and you can read about it, but it's in Spanish, of course.
Yeah.
But since I can speak Spanish, I can read it and translate it. So
Yeah.
the major points, I took them out and
Directly from
But some
Guatemala.
of our other points also came from consulting with parties at Foreign Affairs, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And so they have some pamphlets and they have little booklets that Assad Schuman had produced in regards to going to the ICJ. And so each student was given one of those little packets and they had to read up on this information. So it was a lot for them because for us as adults, this information sometimes is very complex, right? And for us, sometimes we have to sit down and try to figure it out for ourselves. And so you could imagine them being at this age group, they have to go through all that information and they have to make decisions about which arguments they're going to use for their presentation. So we got information from Foreign Affairs. We used a lot of information through Assad Schuman as well. And that was mainly for the yes side of it. So Mr. Tzib is right. The no was very difficult because most people are very emotional when it comes to the no. No, we're not going to give up our land. No, we're not going to take half of Belize. And those are the images a lot of times that people are left with. So we had to make sure as much as possible that whatever arguments we had for yes, we had to figure out what would be a position for this argument with the no side. So we basically used many of the same arguments, but we just learned or taught them how to switch them around so it matched their particular area.
Can I ask a quick question here? So as polarizing as this issue is, where you have persons who are staunchly yes to the ICJ and you have others who are equally as staunch in saying no to the ICJ, do you feel that perhaps with the government's latest position over the past 2 weeks or so, where none other than the Prime Minister himself is
Has
going
come out
forward to
publicly.
encourage members of his government to say yes to go to the ICJ, that perhaps gave you guys an edge going into this debate? Seeing as though you could say, well, the government is putting forward this particular position.
well, let me just say that is a double-edged sword.
Uh-huh.
The reason being, and the students will tell you, they have
Yeah.
one of their debating points has to do with the position of the government itself. Because one, it can give you confidence, basically stating, okay, our government is saying yes to the ICJ, so it can be something that will inspire people to go and vote yes. But there's also the idea of, have they really defended us in the world stage? Can we trust them? So it's a double-edged sword, right? No, I'm not taking any position in relation to it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that it can be interpreted on both sides, and I think that is the beauty of what
Yeah.
we did. Because then our students are not looking at it from one standpoint. They're now being open to a different interpretation of saying, okay, so maybe how I saw this point, is not necessarily the only way of seeing it.
Yeah.
And then they began to hear from someone else and say, okay, I need to maybe question how I understood it and find more information, which was the point of everything.
Yeah.
Find more information, and I think most of them have spent a lot of time reading apart from preparing for a debate. And one thing that I wanted to add to Nikki's comments is that we have also maintained a communication with Assad Schumann. Some of the students formulated questions and sent it to Assad Schumann, and Assad Schumann is answering back to them.
Yeah.
And they use that content as well for their debate.
So what I love about this, and I want to hear from the students now, your own experience, is this conversation is playing out in all of Belize, and where Isane and I can engage in a debate and it can just be that, no, I don't want to go, I don't have to have any facts as to why, or I can use as much fear mongering as I want to say, no, we can't go. You guys need facts. You need actual debatable points to bring forward. And so I want you to tell me about this experience for you as a young Belizean in understanding the history of this issue and putting forward a position.
Well, for me at least, it's something that was not as foreign as I thought it was going to be, because at SJC in second form, we did look at the ICJ and going towards it. So it was more like a refresher of, oh yeah, we did this, you know? And when we were actually presenting the points, it was something that was, yeah, I remember doing this, I feel good about presenting this. So for me at least, it was something that was a little bit more natural for me to do than I previously expected.
Yeah.
So.
Anybody else?
Well, like my classmate had just said, it was more of a refresher for me because in second form we learned the Belizean history, and we did cover on the topic of the ICJ and the points about going to the ICJ. But I think that throughout this entire experience, I've been enlightened to know the points about not going to the SCJ. So, ICJ, my bad. But not going to the ICJ. So, I have both yes and I have both no, right? So in general, I'm more informed. So I'm thankful for that.
So who had to represent a point of view they were not aligned in?
I did, because really, I believe that we should go to the ICJ, but I also believe that we shouldn't go, because there are various reasons why we should not go. And doing this through the experience I learned, I'm still confused as whether to vote yes or no to the ICJ.
Nothing is wrong with that.
Very
We'll talk
honest.
about that
Very
later. Yeah. Anybody else?
Well, me, because it's a topic that is kind of want to be left untouched, but we still touched it. So why I didn't want to choose no in the first place is because I know it's a very sensitive topic for most Belizeans. And when you talk about not going to ICJ, when Belizeans start to act up in a certain way, that why don't you want to go to the ICJ? Why don't you want to resolve this? So it was kind of hard to do this, to say no to the ICJ, but I like challenges, so I took it up.
On this particular issue, when we chose which side to be doing it was kind of random to keep it fair.
Okay.
But for me, I had always wanted to go to the ICJ, but I wanted to do research to back up that point. So when I picked the yes, it was good because then I got to back the point that I wanted to, the point of view that I wanted to do. But during my research, I also researched reasons why we shouldn't go, to try and understand the argument of people saying we could lose our country, we shouldn't legitimize this kind of debate, things like that. So while I did back up what I wanted to go for, it was interesting to learn the counter arguments towards that.
Well,
Well, I was going to say, I think that is very important too, because even going into the debate, there were some things that I thought, okay, this has to be one-sided, you know, there's no way they can rebut this. But at the actual debate, I'm like, wait, that makes a lot of sense. There's actually a second side to the story. So I think it's good for us as students.
You mean your
to see.
opponents won you over?
No, no. Yeah, but you know, it's just things that you didn't realize, but it really did emphasize, you know, critical thinking, analytical thinking as students to say, all right, this definitely has more than one side to it. We can look at it from the other side, as Mr. Tzib said earlier.
I want to start with the no arguments. I'm really interested in hearing what you're bringing forward. This is one of the positions that we hear very often, and I have to say this much. It is unfairly dismissed as an emotional reaction. So what you are going to tell us is going to be very enlightening as to the facts that you have found to back up a no vote, as in we are not or we should not go to the ICJ.
Well, first I'd like to start. My first point would be the 1859 treaty
Yes.
between Britain and Guatemala. The treaty was, in a nutshell, I won't go into too much details, but I'll just give the gist of it. It would be that Guatemala was to give this land to Britain, right? And in return, Guatemala said, okay, if I'm going to give you this land, you're going to build me a cart road, right? But we all know that Britain never did that. Right, so Guatemala is saying, their argument is saying that, yo, we gave you this, but you didn't comply, right? You didn't give us back what we wanted, right? So they're saying, in a way that, yo, you're thieves, right? So we could also use this in a yes argument, but then, are we really going to risk this point for it to come back and bite us when we actually go to the ICJ? So second point would be the various treaties that Britain and Belize and Guatemala have done concerning this case. This point is normally used during yes arguments, but you can use this in a no argument. For example, we have the 1931 exchange of notes, right, where the borders were defined. And you have in 1991 when Guatemala at the UN recognized Belize as an independent country. So we can say, all right, so if we have all these documents in place that Guatemala recognizes us as an independent nation, then why should we go to the ICJ when Guatemala has already agreed that this is an independent nation and not for them?
Let me ask a question here. Is your premise for a no vote that we have borders that are internationally recognized, so there's no need to get it defined? Or is your argument that we stand to lose in the court and we should not go for that reason?
I think we have all these, what you call it now? We have all these documents set. So there really is no reason for us to go to the ICJ once we already see that Guatemala has already basically recognized us as a country. So from a no standpoint, I think there really is no reason to go, right? So since we have all this in place.
Yeah.
Well, I would say there's no reason for us to go because as an independent nation, you're ruling your country, and all of a sudden Guatemala wants to come for Belize. It's like this. It's like I gave you a dog, and then you take the dog, you grow it up big and strong, and then I come back for the dog when I notice that I could use it for my own self. And that is what Guatemala is doing to us. They're trying to get land that there's no need to do, because really what Guatemala wants is access to the sea, and because that cart road was never built, they believe that Belize is still for them, but Belize was never for them because they have never settled in Belize before. So how can a country be for you if you have never settled in a country before?
So my statement was that Guatemala, we're going to ICJ, that we are unprepared, basically. That is what you don't hear in most of the debates. All you hear is about, how this treaty was broken, how this treaty was used. But let's take it for real. Guatemala has landed a boat on our reef. They have shot a Belizean, and we didn't do anything. We shot a Guatemalan in Chicabul, and the Guatemalans react very quickly. They sent out a letter and everything. But to be honest, who's going to take us to the ICJ? Who's going to defend a whole country of Belize? Who is willing to take up that job? It's not only that if they're prepared or if they're qualified, it's if they're emotionally prepared, because if we lose, we are losing half of our country.
Can I, I'm not a part of the debate.
You can be part of it, only them cannot.
But again, my particular point of reference here is the fact that when you listen to the leaders of this country, the political leaders at that, on one hand, you're getting, okay, well, we have an airtight case that I don't see how we can possibly lose going to the ICJ. And on the other hand, you have political leaders who are sort of still on the fence on the matter. Perhaps they took one position before and now they're walking it back to see where they actually stand. When you formulate your argument to say no to the ICJ, did you take into consideration, notwithstanding the facts of your research, but did you take into consideration the fact that you have groups out there, for instance, the Territorial Volunteers, for instance, the BPP, the Progressive Party, and other groups that have vocally said, you know what, no to the ICJ, and these are the other alternatives that can be explored to resolve the matter? Because saying no doesn't mean that the claim goes away, right? Saying no means that it lives on in perpetuity as to why we are exactly where we are today. Were these taken into consideration?
Yes, they were, but since we had such a limited amount of time, I never had time to put it into my speech.
Valdemar, what I'm hearing from you, which you said in looking at the response of Belize to the issues that have taken place at our border, you are using that as your argument to say that we perhaps are ill-equipped to defend Belize at court.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, we're going to come over to the yes now. I have a couple issues I want to throw at you, and I'll see who can convince me otherwise. Let's go.
All right, so looking
So
back...
why should we go to the ICJ?
Right, so looking back at what my colleague Michael Sabido said, if you look at the 1859 treaty, it is very, very clear that there is confusion and ambiguity looking at the Article 7, which is the Court Road. There was confusion between the British and confusion between Guatemala. So the British thought that, okay, we're saying, okay, we're giving you the resources so that you can give half and we'll give the other half so that you may build that road. But because Guatemala got into war with El Salvador, they had to use those funds towards the war. And it's sort of, and because of that the road was never built, Guatemala is saying, hey, the treaty is void. But in Britain's standpoint, in Guatemala's standpoint, since they never got the road, it is, a fair reason to say that the treaty is void. But you can't deny that the survey that leading up into the 1931 exchange of notes, when engineers from both Belizean and Guatemalan side came, and Guatemala actually really did align with all of the surveying that we did from basically, Gracias a Dios and all of those points, they did agree to them. So it's really hard to say that, hey, we can claim our territory when we actually acknowledge them previously in the past.
On the term, moving on, for my point majorly in the debate, we had to focus on the sovereignty of Belize, self-determination, basically stating that a country has a right to choose the way it's governed and its international status. And so Belize is a part of the United Nations, and the ICJ is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. So if we're going to call ourselves a legitimate country in this organization, we need to abide by the laws that all the countries they follow. So if we're getting called to court to debate this dispute, we have to, as a country that has the right to self-determination, we have to say, yes, we're going to go and we're going to debate this so that we can prove that it's our land and that the Guatemalans have no right to it, than to say no and to be forced to, as Valdemar said, he said we're ill-equipped to defend our borders, so we're ill-equipped to go to court, but I think it's the opposite, is that we're ill-equipped to defend our borders, so we can't allow little border disputes and little violent occurrences to occur at the border that are unofficial because we didn't go. So.
Let me start with my first point. Here's one of the main contested points. Some say the ICJ is the only step left to take to resolve this argument. Others say it is not. Tell me your point of view as to why we must go, or that there perhaps are other options. Who wants to jump in first?
Well, like you said, that there, like, he said that there's other, like, there's the other people who try to defend the borders, right? And we could try and sit down and resolve this issue with Guatemala. We don't need to go to court because this is our only way and we need it now and stuff like that. We could just have, you say, you know, we are ready to find our borders and this is ours. We already settled here and we have lots of people sitting here and living here. So we could make an agreement with them that they could allow us to stay here instead of taking our land forcefully.
So you want to go back to a negotiation table of sorts?
Well, the thing is that we've tried negotiations, you know, we've tried, and the thing is that if we try to negotiate, a negotiation basically sends a message that we're going to give up something. Why give up something when we practically have a really strong case in the eyes of the ICJ? I mean, if you look at other cases, like, for example, Nicaragua and Colombia, is it, I believe? Nicaragua and Colombia, Lydia, and yeah, there's a lot of different examples that we can take to say, yeah, we do have a solid case. So why try and negotiate and potentially lose something when we can go to the ICJ and literally save our country?
By going to the ICJ, we run our risk. Because by going to the ICJ, Belize has absolutely nothing to gain. Guatemala, by the other hand, has half of Belize to gain. Why risk half of your country to go to a court that you don't know if you will win or not? Look at it. If Guatemala takes half of Belize, that's southern Cayo, Toledo, Stank Creek, that's where most of our natural resources are. We are doomed if we lose those districts. So why go to a court that we run the risk of losing them than to just negotiate? That's the best way.
What's the faith that you have in the ICJ? If I have a particular position, I can Google an outcome that fits my particular point of view. I can find a ruling from the ICJ that reaffirms, and I can find a ruling from the ICJ that will perhaps give some sort of concession. What is your argument in trusting this court system to be able to settle this centuries-old dispute?
Well, I have no faith in the ICJ because we never know if Guatemala will abide by the rules that the ICJ has set down. Other countries have, but we don't know if Guatemala are going to lay down and follow the rules of the ICJ because they are stubborn countries, and so far Guatemala has shown to us that they are stubborn and they will keep fighting for what they believe, and that is what Belizeans don't understand. You can't vote if you don't understand what your country is going through. You have to know your history. I say we vote no because, as a matter of fact, any way you take it, Guatemala seemed like they never stopped harass Belize because it was ended for a while. Then Guatemala come back with a new kind of new argument, and so like you put this to a point. Does Guatemala really want Belize, or are they plotting Belize for a little fried chicken, like we say? Like, you know when you're buying to eat fried chicken and you know your size up for eat that good? We don't know if Guatemala are doing that to us because you never know their side of the argument. And so it's like a kid sitting watching a McDonald's Happy Meal with gleaming eyes, ready to consume that meal. That is how Guatemala is looking at Belize right now.
Can I ask you a
And
question?
you're a bit hungry, obviously. let me get them to respond, in fairness, right?
Okay.
What's the faith that we should have in the ICJ? They're saying no, because Guatemala is obstinate. It perhaps won't follow through on what is decided.
I think one fact that we have is an overwhelming legal basis from when Michael said the 1859 treaty stating that they had drawn the border along the Sarstoon River, excluding Sarstoon Island, so that that was not a part of Guatemala. And Guatemalan officials, they were the ones who decided to agree to that. And also another thing that gives me great confidence is the amount of Guatemalan participation in the voting, because I remember I had watched, you were in Guatemala at City at the time, where it was 95% voted yes, and like less than the rest voted no. And then 76,000 voted no, and like over, I can't remember, I think it was 2 million?
Almost 2 million.
Voted yes. And Belize has, from 2016, I think we had 300,000 people, but 5 million people didn't even vote. This is all in the interest of the officials, the government, people with business who want to come here. They're saying that they want access to the ocean. That we have untapped oil reserve that they would like to get into. And so as Keron said, they're trying to size us up and take what they want, which is they don't have any real basis. Belize isn't barren land somewhere that they can claim. We're a country with a people, a culture, and so many people who live here for years, they can't just come and uproot us and change the landscape of Belize.
Can I ask a question here? I'll put this on the floor either way. I'll start with you, perhaps, though. So, the World Court, the ICJ, right? Theoretically, if they rule in our favor, and you're saying that you don't know whether Guatemala is prepared to abide by that outcome, do you believe then that if Guatemala persists that Belize is still for Guatemala, even after a ruling is determined, that there wouldn't be sanctions from other UN member states?
Well, there would be, but again, if we look at it, if Guatemala doesn't abide by the ICJ rule, we run a risk of a war between Guatemala and Belize. And we don't know Belize can't go to war. Belize can't put up with war with Guatemala right now. Belize is, we will say, Belize is in debt. And by going to the ICJ, that is wasting another amount of millions of dollars. That will put our debts lower. And who will pay for this? The people, you know why? The people do not know the issue, but they will still go vote, and then they will have to suffer. This is a problem that will affect us and has affected us now. And if we look at this, whatever the ICJ rule, it will affect us. And the millions that the government will have to borrow to go to the ICJ, is who's going to pay for it? Us people who pay the taxes. And then you look at it, we look at it like this. Taxes are already high. And then like, it always goes up and up. And Belizeans are complaining about taxes. And going to the ICJ, that's another amount of millions be wasted. Who will pay back those? Not the government, it will be us. And we will be suffering on the longer end. Not Guatemala, not the government, us.
Well, I wanted to interject in your question. I think it's a tough question to answer, even for prepared persons and persons that have been in the process. But just to give two examples in relation to countries not abiding by what the United Nations or the ICJ, or even the United Nations and sanctions, I would say, particularly. Let's take a look at what recently happened with the young man that was killed in the Chiquibuli areas and what the OAS investigation came through. The OAS yielded that, the Guatemalans shot first, and our forces just responded.
And it was not our military.
It was not our military. Did Guatemala really respect that? Guatemala came out outright and sent a letter already. They began to, and in fact, their people are irate. And that is what, to me, is more concerning, because they come to their people and look, they killed one of us. And even though they're giving them the proof by an alternate body, they still continue. So what guarantees us that if we do go to the ICJ, we win this case, they will abide by it and not just simply irate their people and in fact say, you know what, the ICJ didn't go in my favor, let us war. What guarantees that? And in addition to that, another case that I wanted to look at is there have been many sanctions to Venezuela currently. Have they really worked?
Are these
Or
UN
even if you
sanctions
look
or are
at,
these
but
American
even if you look
sanctions?
at North Korea, which
some
is a
of
more
them are-
public
are-
example.
Well, I think that one of the things I would like to interject here is that as we come as an educational
Yeah.
institution, and as an educational institution, we have certain values and goals that we want to instill in our young people, and I think one of them is for them to be able to debate, or for them to be able to speak on their views and their issues, things that are affecting them. And so we want to look at it from that perspective as well. I know there are various opinions on this topic, but from our standpoint, and especially from SJC's standpoint, we don't want to come across that we are selling or trying to persuade anyone on either side of this argument, because it really is about the public or the populace making their decision on that day, if we should go to the ICJ or not. But just to get back to our real purpose, we just wanted to make sure that, let other schools see that this was an initiative that we started. Maybe other schools can start initiatives like these. Maybe SJC can be debating a fellow school later on.
Yeah.
So this can grow into something a lot larger than just simply us coming up with an opinion on what we feel about it. But it's a bigger picture, and giving our young people the spaces that they require so that they can be a part of these national issues, and not just be at home and sitting at home on Friday night not doing anything, but they go into their communities. They can start to build awareness about these topics. Whenever they're hanging out with their friends, these things can come up for them to discuss, and even at home with their parents, because many of the parents don't even understand the issue. So this was an opportunity for our boys to try and build awareness in their spaces.
Yeah, if
Did
I-
anybody have arguments with their parents about this issue?
Yeah, I did actually. 'Cause there's just so many sides to it and so many things that you can see. But I think one of the biggest things too is that you can actually really show that this isn't something that's completely foreign to us as young people. It's something that we can understand, something that we can debate, something that we can talk about openly and have opinions on. It's not something that, oh, it's complex, we can't understand it. Once you really do try, and once you really do understand the concepts behind it, it's definitely something that's available to all people in Belize.
Yeah. Now, so that's great. Let's debate this point then. So you've spoken of the strength of the case. All these documents, all these agreements that Guatemala have clearly said Belize exists. These are Belize's borders. They go back to 1859. We can find where Britain tried to resolve the issue with the compensation attempts made. So really, everybody else sees Belize as a country, except Guatemala. Why are we going to court just to be able to get them to buy into this issue? Why risk anything in court?
It's a very good question, but I do think that you have to look at not only that issue, but you have to look at representation on the international stage. So when we were going for independence, we got the trust from basically all countries, and except I think it was Cuba and Israel, that didn't vote in our favor for independence. How would it look if we go completely against what the United Nations has said and just basically say, we have our own agenda, we're not gonna follow your protocol and your rules, and we're gonna settle things in our own hands. It does portray Belize in a very bad way on the international stage. So I think that's also very important when you take into consideration the going or not going to the ICJ.
Yeah.
I think it also falls on the support on the national stage, because as a part of the UN, if we do say yes and we go before all the other countries and we dispute this issue with Guatemala, a lot of countries have supported us all the way back to get our own independence. Many of the United Nations were there to push that we got our independence, and if we go limp now and say no and we don't show up to the court, that gives us, as Bryce said, it puts us in a bad light. That's why I think why risk anything? It's the basis that it sets for not going to court and just ignoring it and just keeping your head down and not acknowledging this issue is what we have at stake.
Just to fix, I think you mixed it up. Cuba is a great ally for Belize
Yeah.
in going to the independence. It was the other way around. I get your point. It's the nerves of television. And what we're gonna do is go ahead and take a very quick break. And when we come back, the debate continues. We have the pros and cons here with SJC high school students. And we will continue talking about whether or not we should go to the ICJ after the break.
Looking for low-cost television advertising? Have we got a deal for you? Advertise on Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds is one of the most effective methods for introducing yourself and your business to the community. Use our Daily Classifieds to recruit employees, promote specials, promote your products or services, promote a business opportunity, increase traffic to your website, and advertise items you have for sale. Let us help you save valuable time and money. Call us today at 223-0146 or visit us at our offices on Pony Drive to discuss how we can help your business grow affordably. Channel 5's Daily Classifieds. Advertise today.
When someone you love becomes a memory, the memory becomes a treasure. Channel 5 introduces the Daily Obituaries. The Daily Obituaries will broadcast all death and funeral announcements and memorials to honor your loved one's life and memories. The Daily Obituaries airs on Channel 5 prior to the evening newscast, with subsequent repeats at 10 p.m. and 12 noon the following day. It will also be placed online on our social media platforms, all for a standard package fee. Celebrate their lives and memories with Channel 5's Daily Obituaries. Honor in life and reverence in death.
Welcome back, and we are of course continuing our conversation/debate with the young minds of SJC. If you're just tuning in, they had a debate on whether or not to go to the ICJ last week, and so they're putting forward some of their points, and we're just getting a sense of the information that they delivered during their debate. In fact, they don't know who's won the debate as yet, and I'm going to take that time to find out from the teachers how that decision is going to be made.
Well, the day itself, I think it was enjoyable. The students really enjoyed it. They participated a lot. They had a lot of questions. The way we had it organized is that we had questions written up before so that we didn't have to deal with all that time that it would take for them to come up, or the nerves for them to come to the mic. So we had about maybe 20, 25 questions, and the students, they came to us. We also had teachers who participated as well and also gave their input or posed questions to the boys. Because they didn't have a lot of time to prepare, we did this in 2 weeks. 2.5 weeks more or less, and then they have their majors and their other interests and hobbies, so we had to find as much time as we could for them to prepare, and we also want to give a shout out to the language department, Ms. Williams, who also assisted us, and Mr. Musa from the history department, who also assisted the young men, and Mr. Gambora from the history department. But after the debate, we decided that we would be doing a vote. We'll be having a vote on the Wednesday, which is this coming Wednesday, and the kids will get to decide which side they would vote for. The thing is, though, many of the students who went into the chapel with their minds made up that they're no and shouting no during the presentation, a lot of them at the end said to me, you know something, Ms. Tillett, I think I may vote yes. But many of that had to do with the way the boys presented themselves. They came in their jackets, they came very professional. Each of them had a specific point. They spoke very articulately about their topics. They were very prepared. And many of them said, well, miss, we didn't think the no was as prepared as we would have liked. So it was amazing to me that even at this age, they're able to recognize someone who is able to present themselves in a professional manner. And sometimes we take it for granted that when they're young, oh, they're only going to gravitate towards people who behave like them or who have the same interests. But a lot of times these boys and girls, they're really prepared for people to speak to them as though they're young adults. And I think that we gave them that opportunity, so we're going to see now what will happen.
So the students will decide.
They
Are
will
they voting
decide
yes or
Wednesday.
no to the ICJ and you see who wins then? Or they're voting who wins?
No, they're going to vote to if we should go to the ICJ. But I think,
it's a mini referendum.
yeah, but I think the way it's going to work out is that they're going to base their decisions on the debate, I think. That may be one of the issues.
Well, I think from my experience, and I think the debate itself was very empowering for our young minds, not only to them but to the people that were in the audience, because I must recognize that it was one of the first times when I saw over 500 students calmly sitting down, just hearing and observing what is going to happen. That is pretty amazing to me, because it's hard to get the attention of, I mean, you can get
Everybody,
30, but 500 and not just being like zombies. Okay, I'm ready to hear this. It simply means that the young minds are very interested. They want to know what is going on. They want to know about the issue. And on another note as well, our headmaster is very excited about our election, to see if we are going to go or not go. And I think it will also be a reflection of our Belizean society. Their vote will be a reflection of how Belizeans are feeling, how they're being fed with the media. In fact, in many instances today, the information that is out there is information that is on the media, on Facebook, on Instagram, on TV. And a lot of the information that is on that are on the books now need to be transferred into that sort of medium. Because if you look at the new generation is not necessarily the ones who are going to go and read all of this heavy material. And that is where I think we're failing, and I include myself as historians, because we are not putting it out there as a meme, as a short video clip, as a short cartoon, as a portrayal, as a short story, as you know, we need to do that, because we're defeating the purpose of writing all of these history books that are really nice academically. But are we really reaching out to our people? Are we really reaching out to our population, the wide people, the regular citizen who is out there just, a farmer, a teacher? Are we really reaching out to them?
I'd love to echo that, because I think we cannot see this as an education campaign alone. This is a communication campaign, and effective communication means it has to be in a way that people want to see, hear, read, view in any way. And these days it has to be 60 seconds or less to get your attention. But I feel that we barely scratched the surface on your arguments, and that's because we weren't at the debate itself. And I want to give you the opportunity. How convinced are you now on the position that you presented? Are you still uncertain? Is there a nagging question or issue that perhaps still burns after all the research that you did?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm still not sure, because my colleagues gave a really good rebuttal to us as on the no side, and I feel that we gave them a really good rebuttal too. So it's quite unsure on deciding now to go to the ICJ, because you have all these facts that this one counterfeits this one and so on and so on.
Yeah. Before you close off, I want you all to all leave me with the question that you want answered the most. The question about going, not going.
The question I really want, and the question that really needs to be answered is that if we go to the ICJ, how strong will the argument that Guatemala will bring, and how can we counterfeit?
Okay. Good.
All right, well, my personal opinion on this is that even though our argument was no, it was just something that we picked randomly.
Yeah.
Right. We were just arguing no for the sake of arguing no. But me personally, I too I'm sure. I feel like I don't have all the information I need to make a conscious decision, and I feel as looking in my country, I feel as if the government is leaning a lot towards yes. Right, they're saying yes, we should do this, we should do that. If we go to the ICJ, surely we will win. That's the message that they're putting out to us Belizeans, and I feel that we should have information presented to us young people from a non-biased standpoint, so that you have the yes, okay, if we go to the ICJ, so and so might happen, we might benefit, but then there are also points that if we go to the ICJ and we lose, so and so might happen, and it's going to be bad for us. Right, so I feel as if it should be given in a way so that we have all the information, all the facts that we need, even the Guatemalan arguments, and say, okay, here you go, read this, based on what you feel is best, you make your decision. Instead of the government pressuring us to go yes, and instead just give us information in a way so that we can make a just decision.
Well, I'm very unsure about whether to vote yes or no, but the way it looks, I would say it was best for us to vote no. Not only am I on the no side, but really when I was researching and doing the stuff I needed to do for my group, I noticed that why should we give up something that we already own and that is for us? And honestly, I believe that many young people our age doesn't know about the issue Belize are facing. And it will affect us when the decision is being made, but we young people need to know what is happening in our country. We can't just be not heard anymore. We need to be heard because we are the future of this country. And I just want schools and everyone to know that let our youths know what is going on in our country and stop making everything in this country all about the adults, all about the people who are older than us, because we need to know too, because it will affect us. But the question I really want to be answered
is, this is your platform. Yeah, go ahead.
Where will we get the money from?
I agree with what Keron said. I think it is important that we as young people really do put our opinions forward. So my question it's targeted at the youth is, what is your opinion, why, and just feel free to talk about it. It's something that I think now that we realize we can all talk about openly. So it's just, what is your opinion and why?
I would think that I would still vote yes, in a sense that all this research doesn't make me more confident, but I understand the consequences and what we have to gain.
Yeah.
But my question, not really a question, but rather a statement, is that the ICJ is just the start. It's not, the credits aren't going to roll, the book isn't going to close, the movie isn't going to end after we get yes at the ICJ. This is the start for us to increase our border security, our national identity, and to move on from this. It's not going to be finished with the ICJ, but that's just the start. So.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming in this morning and bravely representing yourselves, your schools, and the perspective that you were assigned, to be very clear, right?
Thank you very much, Marlene.
Great job.
And thank you as well.
Yeah. I have to say, and we've been joined by the history department before. Obviously, you take a very proactive stance in getting the young men of this country, of your school, engaged in national issues and issues that are history in the making, because that's what this is. And so kudos to you and your administration in undertaking this. And I hope we have a round 2 as well. We should do a first form level, second form. I'm kidding. Look at them with all the work. Yeah. Or school versus school. But it would be great to see just how the perspectives change as we get closer to the time of the referendum as well. But this is fantastic. Closing shot.
I think I would just advise the education campaigners to involve the young people, relate to people. And I think one of the, as you were just saying, a debate against school, that is one of the best approaches to me, to educate everybody, because they understand it in a particular way and they will relate it in a particular way, which is, everybody can understand.
Yeah.
And I think that is one of the best approaches. And through this medium, I would also want to thank all our administration as well, Mr. Musa, Mr. Gamboa, Ms. Joy, and of course Ms. Tillett, for undertaking this venture. It was not something easy, especially during the time that we had. We had limited time, but they did it. I mean, it's all them. They are the stars, and they should be the stars. Mm-hmm. They should be the stars of the education campaign. They should be the stars of educating everybody else and educating themselves, educating their peers. Once they do it, I think we can have a good chance of having an educated decision of going or not going to the ICJ. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you once again. We have to wrap this up. You guys have to go to school. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to the Anglican Diocese about their upcoming synod. So stay tuned.